Please be seated. The court is now back in session. We will now hear the testimony of the civil party TCCP 187. Court officer, could you invite the civil party TCCP 187 into the courtroom? President, the Chamber would like to inform all the parties that we received the request by Ieng Sari, E187/1, through his defense counsel, to waive his direct presence in the hearing of testimony of 14 civil parties, including TCCP 187. And as Mr. Insari requests to waive his direct presence in the hearing of the testimony of certain civil parties due to his health condition, the Chamber decides to hear the testimony of the civil party TCCP 187 without the presence of Ieng Sari, pursuant to Rule 81, Sub-Rule 5 of the Internal Rules of the ECCC. Good morning, Mr. Civil Party. What is your name? Civil Party. Mr. President, my name is Jiao Ni. Thank you. Question, how old are you, Mr. Jiao Ni? Response, I am 59 years old. Question, where were you born? Response, I was born at Phnom Penh Village, Chao Lang Commune, Svai Trong District, An Giang Province. It was in Cambodia Crown. Question, where is your current address? Response, I'm living in Kampong Village, Preh Bat Chon Chum Sub-District, Kirivong District, Takai Province. Question, what is your father's name? Response, his name is Chao Nun and my mother's name is Nieng King. What is your wife's name and how many children do you have? Response, her name is San Sokhum and we have 3 children. Thank you, Mr. Jiao Ni. As a civil party, you are entitled to make a statement of suffering and the harms suffered. That is, the harms suffered materially, psychologically, or physically and which are the direct result of the crimes committed during the democratic Cambodia that led to your application to become a civil party in this case. You will be given this opportunity at the conclusion of your testimony if you wish to do so. And we will, of course, tell you when the time is appropriate for such a statement. Legal lawyers, pursuant to Rule 91 bis, the trial chamber will give you the floor first to put questions to this civil party. And the time allocation for the lead co-lawyers as well as for the prosecution is 1 full day session. You may proceed. Lawyer for Civil Party. Mr. President, on behalf of the lead co-lawyers for Civil Party, I'd like to seek your permission that we assigned our Civil Party lawyers to put questions to this Civil Party. President, yes, you may do so. Good morning, Mr. President, Your Honors. Good morning, everyone. My name is Kong Phole. Good morning, Mr. Civil Party. Civil Party, good morning. Question, can you tell your full name to the court again? Response, my name is Chao Ni. Question, do you prefer me to refer to you as Mr. Chao Ni by your full name or just as an uncle? Response, please refer to my full name. Thank you. And how are you, Mr. Chao Ni? Response, I'm fine. Question, have you attended any court proceeding before? Response, no, not in the courtroom itself, but I attended in the public gallery. Question, how are you feeling today? President, Mr. Lawyer for Civil Party, the time is valuable. Please go into the substance. Concerning the facts limited within the proceeding in case 002/01, the floor is not given to you just to make a chit-chat with the civil party. We are here to expedite the proceeding in an effective manner as possible as we can. You have asked 3 questions which are not substantial. Thank you, Mr. President, says the Lawyer for Civil Party. Before I put questions to you regarding the facts in case 002/01, if you need to have a glass of water, please feel free to do so. You may ask question, says the civil party. Question. You stated before this chamber that your place of birth was in Cambodia Crown. When did you come to Phnom Penh? Response. I left Cambodia Crown for Phnom Penh in 1970. Question. What was the reason for traveling to Phnom Penh? Response. The purpose of traveling to Phnom Penh was to become a soldier for the American-backed government. Question. Why did you want to do so? Response. Because the soldiers for the American-backed government could earn a lot of salary to support the family. Question: did you succeed? Response: when I arrived in Phnom Penh, I tried to enlist myself, but my elder brother-in-law and sister-in-law did not allow me to join. Question: when you arrived in Phnom Penh, where did you live? Response: in Phnom Penh, I lived with my elder sibling. Question: was your elder sibling your elder brother? Response: yes, my elder brother and my elder sister-in-law. Question: what was his occupation? Did he have any children? Response: my elder brother was a bank officer, a national bank officer. How many children did he have? Response: he had 3 children. President: lawyer for civil parties, you should absorb your knowledge from your other colleagues in questioning the civil party, and you should also learn how to pause between the question and answer so that your question and answer will go through the interpretation system into English and French. Question: how many children did your brother and sister have, and what were their names? Response: he had 3 children. Chao Suon, the first one. The second one was Chao Ye. And the third one was La Pang. Thank you. Question: in the document, your documents that we have, and Mr. President, the document is D22/253, and in Khmer is 004-21599 00 to English. English is 004784880. The French is 008588939. In 937 rather. In that document, you stated that you lived in the cooperative for 4 to 5 months, and my 2 nephews became ill and skinny due to the lack of food and no medical treatment. Chao Suon, who was 8 years old, died, and 4 or 5 months later, La Pang, who was 5 years old, also died. The 2 died in early 1976. You said you only have 2 nephews in that document, but now you said you had 3 nephews. Why there is a difference? Response: when the application was filled, I talked about my nephews who died and whom I knew of the death. Question: does it mean that you only talked about the nephews that died? Is this correct? Thank you. We'll put some questions to you regarding the events on the 17th April 1975. Where were you on that day? Response. I was at my brother's house behind Olympic Market. Thank you. Question. What happened to you and to your family? Can you tell the court? Can you also tell the court of the events that you yourself knew that happened on the 17th April 1975? Response. Mr. President, on 17 April 1975, which was the victorious day of democratic Cambodia, who came to take complete control of Phnom Penh city, that was the time that the Cambodian Phnom Penh residents came out to congratulate the victory of the democratic Cambodia group. A lot of people came to greet them. As for my family, we did not go to greet them. Questions. Do you have anything else to add to the event? Response. I did not go out to greet them as I had young nephews to look after and my elder sibling was unwell. Thank you. How old were your nephews at the time? Response. Cháu Sun was 7 years old at the time, and Cháu Ye was 6 years old, and La Pang was 4 years old. Thank you. Question. What happened after 17 April 1975? Response. 2 or 3 days after, a group of Khmer soldiers make an announcement asking people to leave Phnom Penh. At that time, I heard gunfire. I also heard the screaming of people looking for their relatives and friends in their preparation to leave Phnom Penh. At that time, the Khmer Rouge people were armed. They approached the front of my brother's house and shouted that we all had to leave, otherwise we would be bombarded by the Americans. My family was rather late, and then they continued shouting that why we were late. We had to leave quickly, and we only had to leave for 3 days, so there was no need for us to bring any property or belongings. And after that, they pushed my brother, and I entered the house and made packed a little belonging and comforting my true nephew, and I did not bring any other property. And then I took my nephew. Then we left with my brother. Thank you. Question. Can you describe the event of at the time that you were leaving Phnom Penh on that day? Response. My brother and I were leaving Phnom Penh in anticipation that we were traveling to our native village. At that time, while en route, I observed that there were sick people who failed, and sitting on the side of the road, there were dead people, and nobody could help anybody else. Thank you. Question. Which road did you travel on that day? Response. I was heading toward National Road number 2 in anticipation that I would head through Cambodia Crown. Question: did you arrive in your native village? Response: no, I did not. Question: then where did you reach? Response: we walked for about 10 days and then we reached Bati district, Tropang Sap commune in Takao province. Of course, my destination was to return to my native village in Cambodia Crown. While I arrived at Tropang Sap village, I was told that whoever came from Cambodia Crown and if we were to reach the border, we would be killed.
Question: and then you made a decision to remain in that location, is that correct? Response: yes, it is. I decided to remain in Tropang Sap for a few days. Question: before we go to the event at Tropang Sap, we would like you to describe to the chamber concerning the evacuation during the first 10 days of your trip. In the course of the evacuation, please tell the chamber about how you were treated and how your family members, including your nephews, were given to eat. If you don't remember the details, just briefly tell us anything at all you remember. Response: Counsel: I don't remember the exact days, but I can say briefly that the trip took several days. Question: thank you. Can you briefly, in a nutshell, tell the chamber what you remember about the scenes or the events you saw at that time during the evacuation? Response: we left Phnom Penh for Bati village, Tropang Sap commune. Life was very difficult during the course of the evacuation. Our young members of the family were not used to going to the countryside or living there. My sister-in-law and other family members had to carry our nephews and nieces, and we could not carry with us any other belongings other than very basic things like clothes, like samput or sarong. And midway, we could make use of the money, the currency we carried with us to trade in with some goods. For example, foodstuff. We knew that the foodstuffs were very expensive, but we had to do our best to make sure that the children, the young people, had something to eat. Question: just now you stated that when you reached Takao province at Tropang Sap commune, you were told that if you were the originally from Cambodia Crown, you would be returned. But that was a trick. If you told them, you would be killed. Who told you about this? Response: I was very fortunate. I don't remember those who who told me about this. It was my luck. Luck was on my side that I knew this before it was too late. Question: to the best of your recollection, were those people who told you were new people like you, or were the base people? Response: these people were the base people. Question: I thank you very much, Mr. Suvapati and Mr. President and Your Honors. I have no further questions to put to the Suvapati, but I would like to cede the floor to my colleague to proceed with further questions. The President Counsel, you may now proceed.
Thank you, Mr. President. Your Honors, everyone, good morning. It's an honor and a privilege, Mr. Chowney, to be able to lead your evidence today. So far, our co-counsel, Professor Kong Palak, has taken you through what happened just prior to the Khmer Rouge coming to power, as well as the evacuation after 17th April 1975. In response to his earlier questions, you said to him that you were headed towards Kampuchea Crown when you stopped in Bati district in Takeo province. Is that correct?
Response: yes, it is.
And one of the reasons that you stopped, as you said earlier, was because someone had advised you that it would not be advisable to continue on to the border or to Kampuchea Crown. Is that right?
Response: yes, it is correct. If I were not told about this, I would have already made my trip all the way to the border.
Is there anything else that this person told you while you were in Tarpeng Sap commune?
Response: there was something else. I was also told that as a Khmer Crown, I had to hide my background as a Khmer Crown.
Did you know why you had to hide your identity as a Khmer Crown?
Response: because I felt that I would be killed and concealing my identity would spare me from being executed, and I changed my family name also.
What did you change your family name to?
Response: Ni is still my first name, but my last name is Lun. I changed from Chao.
So you changed your surname from Chao to Lun, and as you've told the court today, your full name is Chowney. Is there any reason why you changed your surname from Chao to Lun? Would people have known whether this was Khmer Crown?
Response: yes, they would, because the Khmer Crown people share different family names. People from Moatchruk province would have Chao as the family name, and people from Kromun Saw would use Tang as the family name, and so on and so forth. So people from different provinces of Cambodia Kram would have different family name, and they can be identified according to these different identification.
Thank you, Mr. Chowni. So you've told us so far that for the time that you were in Trapeng Sap, you concealed your identity and your family's identity as being Khmer Kram. But did the base people who lived there originally know that you and your family were new?
Response. Those base people regarded me as the 17th of April people only. They didn't mention my name.
And apart from your family, were there other people who were 17th of April people who were there in Trapeng Sap?
Response. Yes, there were quite a lot of 17th of April people, including my family.
And how were you and your family and the other 17th of April people treated by the base people living there in Trapeng Sap?
Response. We were not treated equally. We were not talked to nicely. We were regarded as the imperialists, or rather the capitalists. They regarded us as those who reaped off the benefit of the peasants, and this kind of language was very often used against us.
For the time that you lived with your family in Trapeng Sap, how did you and your family survive? Because there were 3 young children and your elder brother and his wife. How did you survive for food and water?
Response. Immediately after the evacuation and upon arriving at the place about a month after that, we did not have anything to do yet. We came with some belongings, some food stuff, and we had to be moved from one place to another. And we reached a location where there were rail tracks, and we had to head on through the rail tracks.
So you've just mentioned to us that you went to a destination where there was rail tracks. Just bringing you back for a moment, Mr. Chowni, to Trapeng Sap. While you were living there, what were your living conditions in Trapeng Sap, in Takeo, in Bati district like?
Response. People at the base did not pay attention to the new people or the 17th of April people like us. And the situation was too difficult for us to continue living there, and we had to do our best to move out from the location.
So how long were you actually staying in Trapeng Sap commune in Takeo?
Response. We were there for a few days only, about 10 days to a month.
And when you left Trapeng Sap, did you leave together with your family as well?
Response: Yes, we did. We left the location all together with the whole family and a few other 17th of April people.
Okay. So when you left with your family and other 17th of April people from Trapeng Sap because of what the base people had said to you, where were you going towards? Was it towards Kampuchea Kram again?
Response: Allow me to elaborate on this. After coming from Kampuchea Kram, I went all the way to Phnom Penh. But when I went to Trapeng Sap, I did not know where else I should go. Having noted the rail tracks, I just took the advantage of the rail tracks. I mean, going along the rail track to other destination without knowing where.
Okay. So to clarify again, for the benefit of the chamber, Mr. Chowni, are you saying that you knew National Road 2 because you had originally come from Kampuchea Kram to Phnom Penh earlier, but at this time when you were leaving Trapeng Sap to go back to Phnom Penh, you were not using that route and you were going wherever you could go together with your family. Is that right?
Response: Yes, it is correct.
So on this journey, when you had left Trapeng Sap together with your family and other 17th of April people, how did you survive? Because you said you had only the foodstuffs that you had brought from your house. So how did you and your family survive when you were moving all over, when you left Trapeng Sap?
Response: During the first few months, we did not work, but we had to exchange our belongings for some foods. Indeed, the belongings could help us exchange with the foods, and we could survive on that.
How did this affect your family, especially the young children who were 4, 7, and 6 years old?
Response: There was a great impact on my family. It was a very difficult time. It was the rainy season, and my younger members of the family and us had to be exposed to the wind and the rain in the open, and it was miserable.
As you went from place to place, finding wherever you could to get food and clothing, earlier you told us you came across a railway track. Is that correct?
Response: Yes, it is. We found the railway tracks.
And did you and your family start following the railway track, walking back towards Phnom Penh?
Response: At that time, I discussed this with my family, in particular my brother and sister-in-law, that we would have to come back to Phnom Penh.
As you were walking together with your family along this railway track towards Phnom Penh from Takeo area, were there other people also walking with you? or was it only your family?
Response. There were other people as well. We were joined by other families.
And these other families, were they also 17 April people?
Response. It is not easy to tell whether these people were purely the 17th of April people or we were joined by some of the base people as well.
And as you were walking along the railway tracks towards Phnom Penh, can you describe the conditions for you and your family? How were you able to have food and water and new clothing as you were making your way towards Phnom Penh along the railway track?
Response. As I already stated earlier on, we did not start working. We only made use of the possession, the belongings that we could carry along with us to trade for food or for something that could keep us alive. And we were not yet placed in any of the cooperatives as yet.
Did you manage to reach Phnom Penh as you were walking along this railway track?
Response. No, we didn't.
And why weren't you able to proceed towards Phnom Penh? Were you stopped?
Response. Well, we had to observe some rests and we stopped at some places I don't remember, but we had to stop on at several locations, although we knew that we were coming to the Phnom Penh direction.
And as your family and you and the other people were walking towards Phnom Penh, were you ever stopped by any members of the militia, the Khmer Rouge militia?
Response. On this long journey along the rail tracks, we were met by some people who were wearing black clothes with scarf. We did not know whether they were soldiers or militia, but we were stopped. For example, we were stopped to take some rest, or we were stopped and asked not to move forward. We were met by these people on several occasions.
Could you describe the clothing of the militia who met you, as well as whether or not they had weapons with them?
Response. These militiamen were wearing black clothes with some scarves, and they were wearing the sandal made of car tire, and they were mentioning about the 17th of April people, telling us to be relocated to other locations, and they did not allow us to stop at one place for long, so we had to be moving all along, and we did not know where we would be heading to.
At any time, did these militia stop you and ask you to get onto a train?
Response. After a long walk, we were stopped by some militia, and a few days later, there was a train coming by, and we, at that time, were forced to board the train.
So, Mr. Chowney, so far you've told us that there was a very long journey that you and your family have been walking and staying at different places for a long time. So you don't have to tell the court the exact date, but for the benefit of the court, could you say roughly when was the time period? Was it late 1975 or 1976 when you were forced to board on this train that you have just described?
Response. When we boarded on the train, I cannot remember the exact date, but it took us about 1 day before we reached Mong Risai train station in Battambang province.
Before we speak about what happened in Mong Risai in Battambang province, let's come back a little bit so you can tell the court about that incident when you and your family were forced onto the train. Could you describe that situation, and were you ever given a choice by the Khmer Rouge militia to continue walking? Could you have a choice to say no, or did you have to board that train?
Response. At that time, no one could resist such order by the militia.
And how many militia people met you and your family and others and forced you to go on the train?
Response. There were about 10 of them who forced us onto the train, and they were all armed.
Apart from your family and yourself, how many of the other people who were walking with you were also forced onto the train, roughly?
Response. There were a lot of people who were forced onto the train because when the train was coming to the station, it was already packed with other passengers already.
And where was the station where you were forced to go onto the train? While you were saying you had moved away from Takeo, you hadn't reached Phnom Penh yet, was this in Kandal area or other provinces? Did you know where you were forced to go on the train?
Response. I don't remember the exact location where we boarded on that train because we never been in that location before, and I don't remember quite well where it was.
On the train itself, were there other Khmer Rouge militia?
Response: Yes, there were some Khmer Rouge soldiers who were escorting the train.
And did they give you any food or water, or your family or the other people? Were they given any food or water on the train?
Response: No, we weren't.
And on the train, were you allowed to talk to other people?
Response: Yes, we were, but only to the people who were sitting or standing close to us.
And on the train, did they tell you the destination? Where were you going?
Response: No, they didn't.
គេអត់បានប្រាប់យើង
They didn't tell us where we would be heading to.
Can you describe how you and your family felt at this time, having been forced onto the train and not knowing where you were going?
Response: I'm afraid I cannot get your question clearly. Please repeat it.
Som Tabong, allow me to repeat my question. So my question was, you have told us so far that you were on the train, you were not given any food or water, and you were not told where you were going. How did you and your family feel? Were you afraid? Did you have any worries?
Response: When boarding the train, the feeling was mixed. We did not know whether we would be sent to be executed, but it was an order by the militia, and we had to board on the train, although we know that we would be destined for death.
And please tell the court what happened when you finally arrived in Mong Rusei district in Battambang.
Response: When we got to Mong Rusei district and when we got off the train, we were already awaited by some people on some ox carts where we would be taken to some cooperatives.
And can you remember the name of the cooperative that you were taken to? And were you taken together with your family?
Response: We were taken by the ox carts to the cooperative. At the beginning, I did not know the exact name of the cooperative nor the location where we were taken to. However, a few days later, we heard people talking about this. They represented themselves as the people in charge of Ta Hơi cooperative. So I knew that it was Ta Hơi cooperative.
Okay. So before we come to Ta Hơi, can you describe the living conditions in this cooperative for you and your family?
Response. After people were brought to the cooperative by the outskirts, at the beginning there were a lot of people. Houses, the shack houses were built to receive the newcomers. My family and my elder brother and in-law would be allowed to stay in the same house as the others. And at that moment, we know that the cooperative was located in Chok Thum in the Mong Risai area of Battambang.
And when you were in the cooperative with your family, and were there many other people who were also there in that cooperative, Chak Thum?
Response. Rather, the President, Civil Party, please hold on. Counsel for Mr. Ieng Sari, you may proceed. Counsel Ang Odam. Mr. President, according to document E124, point number 7, cooperative is not part of the matter to be discussed during these proceedings. As yet, I would like to take issue with the line of questioning concerning this fact, which is not relevant now.
Mr. President, Your Honours, if I may just respond, we aren't going so much into the strictures or the specifics of the cooperative as much as we are speaking about what happened in the context of forced transfer 2, where Mr. Chowni has just mentioned that he was forced on a train and headed through the railway unit to Battambang, where he was received by Khmer Rouge militia. If I may proceed, Your Honours.
The President, indeed the objection is not sustained. You may proceed. And Civil Party is instructed to respond to the question. We note that the question is not about the structure of the cooperative, and it is about the impact of the evacuation, the immediate evacuation of the second phase, about the living condition or how people were treated upon arriving at the cooperatives. So the Chamber notes that such question is appropriate and that it should be proceeded.
Thank you, Mr. President, Your Honours. Mr. Chowni, if I may just repeat my question for clarification's sake. So my question was, while you were in Mong Risai district and you and your family and others were in Chak Thum, can you describe to the court your living conditions as well as the food and any other medicine that was given to you and your family?
Response. At the Chok Thum cooperative, immediately upon arriving the cooperative, we were not given enough food. We were offered some thin gruel, and we were treated as the newcomers with very small bowl of thin gruel, and each family member would also be offered the same ration. The food was very insufficient. A few months at the cooperative, my nephews became seriously ill, and there was no medicine available. Chow soon got a diarrhea, and when Chao Soon's father got a sweet corn and then he offered it to Chao Soon. Chao Soon got the diarrhea. He ate the sweet corn, but then all the same corn had, passed out, and he had to really make use of his feces with the corn again. He ate his own excrement.
Mr. Chowni, before we go further about the direct impact that your family suffered, which is terrible, can you tell us more about how many people were held in this Chaktom cooperative? Was it crowded, and were they generally all new people, 17 April people?
Response. At first, there were a lot of people. The cooperative was very crowded, but I can't estimate how many people there were, although there were a lot.
And were many of these people 17th of April people?
Response. I cannot say whether all the people were surely 17th of April people or mixed with other local people, because we were not allowed to talk to one another to know about this. The President intervenes. Since it is now appropriate time for lunch adjournment, Council and the Civil Party, we may now adjourn for lunch, and the next session will be resumed by 1:30 p.m. Court officer is now instructed to assist the Civil Party during the adjournment and have him return to the courtroom when we resume, which is 1:30 p.m. Counsel for Mr. Nuon Chea, you are on your feet. You may now proceed.
Thank you, Mr. President. I had a discussion with my client at the coffee break this morning, and he indeed informed me that he was already suffering from a headache, a backache, and a lack of concentration. Perhaps your honors noticed that at approximately 10 to 10 this morning, the doctor came over to examine Nuon Chea. He had been sleeping, and we were concerned that we had no idea why he was sleeping, and we thought the doctor should have a look at him. I should also note for the record that he has been sleeping for the last half an hour or so, if not more. So he has not been following or participating effectively in any sense in the proceedings this morning. We would make our habitual application that he be permitted to spend the afternoon in the holding cell, and also we would ask that he be examined by the doctor over the lunch break to see if there is indeed any special problem today. Additional problem, I should say. Thank you. Those are our two applications. Thank you.
The President, the Chamber notes the request of Mr. Nuon Chea by his counsel, in which he has asked that he be excused from this courtroom and be allowed to retire to his holding cell due to his health concern. And there is an additional request also that the treating doctor be ordered to inspect or examine Mr. Nuon Chea's health condition during the lunch adjournment. The Chamber also notes that the requests are appropriate, and Mr. Nuon Chea is now allowed to observe the proceedings from his holding cell downstairs through audio-visual means for the remainder of the day. Mr. Nuon Chea has expressly waived his right to be present in the courtroom. The Chamber would like counsel for Mr. Nuon Chea to produce the waiver given, thumbprint or signed by Mr. Nuon Chea in due course. And AV booth officers are now instructed to ensure that Mr. Nuon Chea's holding cell is properly connected to the audio-visual equipment so that he can observe the proceedings from there. And a treating doctor is now instructed to conduct a medical examination on Mr. Nuon Chea during this adjournment, and the doctor is advised to report to the chamber through the greffier of the trial chamber before the next session resumes. Security personnel are now instructed to bring Mr. Nuon Chea and Khieu Samphan to their respective holding cell, and that Mr. Nuon Chea will be there in the holding cell to observe the proceeding, while Mr. Khieu Samphan will have to be returned to the courtroom by 1:30 p.m. The court is adjourned.
សូមអញ្ជើញក្រោកឈរ